A Sunday school teacher stood on the sidewalk outside a Boston shoe store, working up the nerve to go in. His name was Edward Kimball, and he had one of his students working in the back of that store. A young, rough shoe clerk who could barely read or write. Kimball had nearly talked himself out of it. The boy seemed like a lost cause, and to be honest, the whole visit seemed like a waste of a good afternoon. He paced. He almost turned and walked away, but then he pushed the door open and went in, looking for Dwight Moody. Welcome to Lift Up Your Day, a daily 5-minute devotional, short stories with a biblical heartbeat. I'm Rodney Coe, and today, the awkward conversation in the back of a shoe store that changed the world. Dwight Lyman Moody was not anyone's idea of a future preacher. He had a 5th grade education. He could not spell. He could barely string together a proper sentence. He had come to Boston to sell shoes, and that was the whole of his ambition. But Edward Kimball walked back to that stockroom, found Moody wrapping shoes in paper, and simply told him how much Christ loved him. That was it. Jesus loves you. No grand sermon, a nervous teacher, and a few honest words spoken over a stack of shoe boxes. And right there, among the leather and the twine, Dwight Moody gave his life to God. Now watch, one ordinary conversation. Watch what it can do. That shoe clerk who could not spell became the greatest evangelism of his century. Moody preached to crowds that ran into the thousands on 2 continents in the days long before a microphone could carry a voice. He founded a school in Chicago to train plain, ordinary young men and women for ministry. And that school, Moody Bible Institute, is still sending workers out in the world today. And the ripples never stopped with him. Watch how far one shoe store conversation traveled. Moody, in his revivals, swept across 2 continents, and out of those crowds, a young man named J. Wilbur Chapman came to Christ and went out preaching. Chapman took a washed-up professional baseball player under his wing and taught him how to handle the gospel. That ball player was Billy Sunday, and he grew into one of the most famous evangelists America ever produced. The fruit of Sunday's crusades reached a fiery preacher by the name of Mordecai Ham. And in 1934, in Charlotte, North Carolina, Mordecai Ham held a revival, and a tall, teenage farm boy slipped quietly into the back of the meeting and gave his heart to Jesus. His name was Billy Graham, and he would go on to preach the gospel in person to more people than anyone in the history of the world. Edward Kimball never preached to a stadium in his life. He just walked into a shoe store he almost skipped. Everything else, all the way down to a boy named Billy Graham in Charlotte, came after. Maybe you feel like the unlucky one, too uneducated, too ordinary, too far behind to ever matter much to God. Then read what Paul wrote. God has chosen the foolish things of the world to put to shame the wise, and God has chosen the weak things of the world to put to shame the things which are mighty. That is not God's backup plan. That is how he prefers to work. And when you feel too small, too young, or too unqualified, remember what God told a trembling young Jeremiah. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Do not say, I am a youth. God was never impressed by Moody's resume. He never is. He just looks for a willing heart and sometimes one nervous person brave enough to open a door. So make the call, have the conversation, walk into the shoe store. You may never know this side of heaven what God will start with that. And that, friend, is how God lifts up your day.